This is the Bob Cordaro Show on TV.
They fought for us, now he'll fight for you. The pursuit of justice and liberty. It's the Bob Cordaro Show on TV.
And now, Bob Cordaro.
Great, good morning, everyone. Happy Sunday. My name is Bob Cordaro, and this is the Bob Cordaro Show on TV. I'm a native son of this region, born, raised, and returned. As many of you know, I do radio 5 days a week on WILK, appointment radio. And now we do this thing, the Bob Cordaro Show on TV. Each week, 11:30 a.m. on WNEP 16. I love it here. This is home, and I love the people. From living in big cities around the country, I learned to appreciate that this is the best place on the planet. And I feel the need for us to let each other know how great it is here. We need to believe it. I've been around you and known you all my life. You are great workers, innovators, business people. You are the best of mothers, fathers, friends, neighbors, and human beings. You're the greatest patriots, soldiers, citizens, and Americans. You are America. Well, this won't be like the radio show I do every day, however. On WILK, we do a lot of politics, a lot of criticism, and a lot of opinions. For this TV show, we want to accentuate the positive, to feature those who have achieved and have or want connections to this region. So it's a whole different ballgame. The Bob Cordaro Show on TV. Today, we're meeting a woman who has made her mark on Northeast Pennsylvania in the media. More specifically, the regional newspaper business. Kerry Miscavage is an area native who has become the first female publisher of the Times Leader Media Group, one of the leading communications companies in this area. We will explore her climb to the top, her role at the Times Leader, talk about the company as a whole, and get her vision of the future of newspapers and the media business as she sees it. Kerry Miscavage, our Power Brunch Player of the Week. But first, in our health segment, Dr. Brian France is going to explore diabetes and its effects on oral health. We all know and need to know how to handle and treat this pervasive disease that affects so many lives and virtually every family in Northeast and Central Pennsylvania. Looking forward to this show. So, with the help of God, our families, and each other, let us begin.
Dr. Brian France is an internationally recognized periodontist. He heads a multi-specialty dental practice in Dunmore and has consulted, lectured, and taught around the world in his chosen field.
Well, in today's health segment, we're going to talk about one of the most serious illnesses and one that pretty much the entire region, Northeast Central Pennsylvania, if someone doesn't have it, their family has it. It's everywhere, and that's diabetes. Brian France, welcome again, as always. Talk to us about the implications of diabetes. It's so widespread.
Yeah, and Bob, it's actually a global epidemic. You mentioned northeastern Pennsylvania and the prevalence, but it's actually a global epidemic, and about 10% of the global population has some form of diabetes. In fact, by 2030, it's supposed to double, so to 20%. So it really is quite a healthcare crisis, public healthcare crisis for the globe.
What does the literature say is the cause of this development? Are
Sure.
eating habits?
So there's three types of diabetes. There's what's pre-diabetic, which is sort of a new classification. And pre-diabetes is if your blood sugar is around 115 to 120, blood glucose. And a hemoglobin A1C, that test is really the gold standard to test somebody's level of blood sugar, if you will. And they want that around 5.6. So that's pre-diabetes. Okay? The second type is insulin-dependent diabetes, or type 1 diabetes, and that's where the patient doesn't make insulin, basically. And so their blood sugar is constantly elevated. The other type is type 2, which is the most common form. About 90% of diabetics have type 2 diabetes, and that's really related to overweight, lack of exercise, poor dietary habits. There are some type 2 diabetics that the receptors that bind insulin in our blood system don't work properly, and that will elevate their blood sugar. But most people have type 2 diabetes. And again, it is usually a function of, as I said, being overweight, poor healthy habits.
And the implications of a diabetic condition of any of the three types you talked about are the entire body is affected.
It's very significant. Uncontrolled diabetics have a multitude of medical problems. You can have retinopathies, eye problems, kidney problems, poor wound healing, a high propensity for stroke, heart problems, and so on. So yeah, it really is a major problem.
Let's talk about how it enters into your practice as oral surgeons and periodontists.
Sure.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So in one of the earlier segments, I talked about periodontal disease, and periodontal disease is one of the most common chronic problems in the world, as is diabetes. So there's quite often there's an overlap between patients that have diabetes and periodontal disease. Periodontal disease is typically caused by bacterial plaque, but the course of the disease can be modified by either cigarette smoking, for example, or some systemic problems like diabetes. So diabetes would be considered a risk factor for periodontal disease. And what that means is there's actually a bidirectional relationship between the two diseases.
Big word. Tell me what bidirectional means.
Sure. So bidirectional means this in this situation is that if a patient comes to my practice for a periodontal problem and they have an advanced periodontal problem, a lot of bone loss, maybe they're at risk of losing their teeth, I always want to be certain that they don't have a diabetic problem. So we know that from the literature, the scientific studies, that if a patient has elevated blood sugar, it can lead to more significant periodontal problems. And also, there's been some recent research the other way, that if we correct a patient's periodontal problems, it will actually lower the patient's hemoglobin A1C substantially.
So you find in your practice that this is a common occurrence.
Yeah, it's again, because of the amount of patients that have diabetes and the amount of patients that have periodontal disease, oftentimes there is an overlap. And so what we do, I do want to, before I get into how I would get to manage that, Bob, I do want to mention there's other oral side effects that diabetes can create. And so, for example, dry mouth. Mm-hmm. I've had a couple of patients this week that we've sent out for blood work that they had undetected dry mouth, unknown, not medication related, and so we send those patients to be tested. Burning mouth, burning tongue, poor wound healing, those types of things we see in my practice, and so those are other oral side effects from diabetes.
Well, because you're at the focal point of the body, the mouth, mm-hmm. you can detect a lot of these things. You can help refer them where they've got to go mm-hmm. to address it, including a diabetic situation.
Agree. And so, what can patients do? What should we do for them? Basically, Bob, it's really up to the dentist and the physician to do proper screening on the patients. Of course, the patients actually have to show up for the appointments, right? Yeah. But so, for example, if part of one's normal health care would be to see your physician, get blood work done, exercise, watch your diet, do the things that you can do to control your blood sugar. And if you are pre-diabetic, if you're slightly elevated, get on a medication and get it under control. Get your lifestyle under control, and you can reverse it. So that's part one. Part two, have your dentist screen you. When you go to the dentist, if you have periodontal disease, okay, you should be checked to make sure that you don't have diabetes. and vice versa.
Well, Brian, thank you very much for all that. It's something that everybody should think about and watch for, and we're happy you're one of the people that's watching for it.
Yeah, and one other thing, Bob, my staff wanted to let you know that you are late for your cleaning appointment. So make sure you call.
I'll be there soon.
Okay. All right.
Dr. Brian France, thank you.
You're welcome.
And now, the Sunday Brunch Power Player of the Week on the Bob Cordaro Show.
We're joined today by our Power Brunch Player of the Week, Kerry Miscavage. She is, as I had said in the introduction, the first female to publish and be the publisher. Remember, the publisher's the big deal. When you look at the masthead of any newspaper, publisher is the big cheese. She's the first one to do that. And we're going to explore things with Kerry, both the business herself and where everything's headed. Kerry, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
All right. So let's start with you. You're from here originally?
I'm actually from Poughkeepsie, New York.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and
Not too far.
Not too far. I came here in 1991 to go to Wilkes University.
Neat. So you go to Wilkes and you never left.
I never left.
Did you start right away with the Times Leader?
Well, I graduated in the spring of 1995.
Mm-hmm.
And, I was lucky enough, my mother was paying my rent through college. And she gave me about a month after I graduated and said, all right, kid, it's time to get off the payroll, get a job. Yeah. And my last semester at Wilkes, I was lucky enough to take a class by Times Leader managing editor Cliff Schechtman. Oh. And it was a newspaper layout class. Lots of fun, had a great time during the class. And once I started looking for a job, of course, in the Times Leader classifieds, because that's what we did, right? And I found a position open in the advertising department. I went for an interview. I name dropped, because that's what you did, and used Cliff's name. I got the job, and that was August of 1995.
Wow. So, I mean, the ownership transformations and changes over the decades have been substantial. You've weathered them all, and not everybody does that. There's also been, as with every newspaper across the country, there have been reductions in staff. And Kerry Miscavage is still standing and rising to the top each and every decade.
Well, Bob, I think it has to do with, it wasn't a quick rise, right? It's been 27 years. And so I'm one of those slow mover-uppers, and that's been great for me. When I started at the Times Leader, we were still pasting up newspaper columns, articles, advertisements on a big Times Leader layout page. I mean, talk about an antiquated process back in 1995, and think of all the changes that have happened since then with technology. But yes, the ownership changes have been a little bit crazy.
Were you a journalism major at Wilkes?
I was an English major.
Okay, just as good, probably better. So you had always thought maybe you would write, I guess.
I think I thought that I might be a technical writer for a large company, whether that meant I would go to New York City or Philadelphia. I thought I would be a writer for a large company. I did.
All right. As you're climbing through, you're watching the business evolve, and in some cases dramatically, in some places swiftly. But the company's changing so much at the same time the industry is changing, maybe as a reflection of the industry, but certainly in and of itself. You had to adapt to changes within the ownership, within the structure, where you were located, everything.
I think that's why I've been in the same place for 27 years is because there have been so many changes. And every few years, new owners, new publisher, new leadership, and the new technology. So we had to continually adapt and make those changes into our daily lives. And, it was like a new company every few years. So I had that change all of the time, and I just went with the changes and, like you said, adapted.
Is this, and I used to follow the newspaper business much more closely, is this the smallest market, Wilkes-Barre, to have two major, essentially daily papers?
That is true. That is true. Years ago, there were several others still. And even back in the 90s, we would say, hey, we're one of the few two newspaper towns. And obviously, we still are today.
Well, your primary competition, the Citizens Voice, was founded on strike from the original Times Leader and became its own newspaper with the disaffected union members starting it up many decades ago as well.
That's correct, and I'm glad I wasn't around during that time.
It was a tough time.
Very tough times, and I can't really speak to it because I wasn't there, but had a lot of friends that crossed that picket line, and they were very tough times.
Yeah. All right. So you now ascend to a top sales position, and then they say, Kerry Miscavage, will you be our publisher? That's only a couple of years ago. How great of a feeling was that?
Well, it was a great feeling. I wasn't sure it was going to happen. I had hoped it was going to happen, but traditionally when there's a publisher change, you're not sure if someone from the outside is going to come in, and you don't make that assumption. You never make that assumption that you're going to be chosen. But I was hopeful, and when our past publisher retired, I jumped in with our team members and kind of took charge and made sure we were doing what we were supposed to be doing.
Were you managing editor before you became publisher?
No, I was actually vice president of sales and marketing.
So, it's sort of a double jump, I guess, in a way.
Well, advertising and news has always been separate, kind of a side-by-side type of departments, so to speak. So, yes, I came up through the advertising department, but always had a great affiliation for the newsroom, the journalism, and all the great community news that we put out.
So now you become publisher, and this was COVID strikes what time relative to your ascendance?
COVID happened before.
Okay.
But at the time, I was integral at, making a lot of the changes and decisions that had to happen at the newspaper at the time.
And this paper has gone to Wednesday through Sunday.
Well, Bob, actually, we're a 7-day newspaper because we have fresh news every day. We have a wonderful Times Leader e-edition 7 days a week.
For old fogies like me. But okay, so the electronic edition is every day.
The electronic edition is fresh every day, but yes, we deliver print Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Sunday.
So and the Times Leader is not just the Times Leader newspaper. You're the Times Leader media group for a reason.
Yes.
Tell us about the other publications.
We do have a family of print and digital publications. Times Leader daily and Sunday, of course. The Abington Journal, which serves the Clark Summit area. That's it's a monthly. Yeah. Sunday Dispatch, which is our Greater Pittston area publication. We now have...
My old friend Chicky used to own that.
That's right. Yes, absolutely. And Mountain Peaks is our Greater Mountaintop publication. Comes out every other week. And, of course, every publication that we own has a partner digital platform as well.
So in what way are they integrated, or are they integrated in any major way other than maybe the printing?
You mean with the digital product?
Yeah, all the products. You've got, well, let me ask you, how many products do you have? I mean, between digital and print?
Well, over 10 if you count everything. The Abington Journal serves the Clark Summit, so that's totally different community news than what we serve in the Times Leader or the Sunday Dispatch on a daily or weekly basis because of the nature of the geography. So the news tends to be a little bit different based on the geography that we serve with those publications.
How much of a staff do you have at this point between all of the properties?
About 100 between the properties, the full-time, part-time, and of course we have contractors as well that help us deliver the paper.
All right, so that's one of the setbacks, I guess, and difficulties of the print editions of any publication, getting it there.
It's true. We've been very, very lucky, Bob. We've been so lucky. We have a great carrier force right now. We have absolutely no down routes, which mean there are no open routes that somebody else has to substitute for. They don't have to go into the mail. We are fully carrier delivered right now. And that's a little bit unusual for newspapers to say during this day and age.
So when you reduced your print publication of the Times Leader specifically, did it create business challenges, sales, and in every other way?
Sales-wise, for advertising, it didn't really hurt us. Advertisers wanted to be in the print edition, so we were still able to accommodate that. And they still wanted to be on the digital side as well, so we were still able to accommodate advertising. And these days, no matter what audience you want to serve, we have the products to be able to deliver your message. So we have everything that a customer needs.
Well, we started this process by having one of your old line columnists, Bill O'Boyle, who wrote just a great story on a couple of occasions that one of my radio listeners had sent me about Pencil Pete. I mean, that's something that I think the print edition delivers more than, I'm an ink guy still, I guess, and it delivers something a little bit more tangible, whatever.
It's definitely tangible, but it's also because of the columnist himself, Bill O'Boyle. And he's one of the many reasons I am very proud to lead the Times Leader, because of his history knowledge, his ability to tell a story. And you touched on it on your radio shows a couple different times. And he's just one of several people that are able to do that. And they're able to do it now in print and online.
How about your staff of writers? That's all been pretty stable?
Yes.
That's
We had somebody recently retire, which is unusual.
Yeah.
And we wish him the best in his retirement. But yeah, we're trying to replace him right now.
What do you see as the future? And then I'll ask you about the industry writ large. What do you see as the future of the Times Leader Media Group?
We have such a bright future ahead, and it's all about delivering community news to northeastern Pennsylvania. The sky is the limit. We are very lucky to be owned privately by an entrepreneurial team that wants the best for this community. So that means the doors are open for us. And, you know, some ideas are bad ideas, but come up with a new idea, come up with a thought. Let's put it into action. Let's see what it does.
Yeah.
Let's provide free community news to the area. It's a changing area. We need to be able to get the important things out to our area, and that's what we're doing.
It is, by the way, production value-wise, I look at it, and it's really a nice newspaper.
Thank you.
The print portion.
Thank you. We print right in downtown Wilkes-Barre. We are very lucky to have a wonderful press right on site, right in downtown. A lot of newspapers decide to ship out or, produce elsewhere, but we are lucky to have our team right in our building. As you may know, we own a big piece of property right in the city of Wilkes-Barre, and we're proud of that property. And it's both business and manufacturing, so a lot goes on there 7 days a week.
Is your company and the entrepreneurs behind it, are they acquisitive? Are they looking for other opportunities nationally?
Yes, they are always looking for opportunities. Both our owners have other business interests and ventures. And so when we put everything together, that adds to our resources that we have for the Times Leader. So we're very lucky. But yes, they're always looking for new opportunities.
Well, everybody asks this all the time. And they've been asking it since was in politics. Will you ever move up to Lackawanna County? Will you ever create a daily presence here?
Bob, I'm never going to say no to that. I don't know the answer to that today, but it's never a no. We've done some ventures in the past with different ownership, different leadership, and we never say never. It's always a possibility because we do consider northeastern Pennsylvania our home, which includes more than just Luzerne County.
Yeah. What do you see quickly for the industry as a whole? I mean, the print news side is disintegrating in many cases. I happen to think it's because of ideology trumping news, but where do you see the newspaper business going? All electronic, or where's it going?
I think to a point, there will always be a printed newspaper for those that enjoy that. We still have a lot of people in this valley that want the printed newspaper. You may have one person in the household that reads the printed edition, but then somebody else who reads it online and reads the e-edition. So I think for a long time, we'll have a printed copy of the Times Leader, but sure, digital's where it's at. We haven't gotten to our heyday of digital audience yet, and that's exciting.
How do you interact with the social media platforms? Because seems to be critical for everybody.
It is critical, and it certainly helps us drive traffic, and we utilize it to the best of our ability with hard news, some lighter things sometimes, some fun things. The hard thing is some of the commentators on social media, but again, that's social media. It's not our paid subscribers. So
the future is bright, Kerry Miscavage.
Future is great, and in my 27 years, this is the best our team has been, and the best ownership that we've had, and I feel very lucky to be part of this team.
That's great. Kerry Miscavage, thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Your Sunday Brunch Power Player of the Week on the Bob Cordaro Show. Join us every week for the Sunday Brunch Power Player of the Week.
Well, that's the show for today. I learned some things about diabetes and its consequences, and it was great to talk to Kerry Miscavage about the Times Leader, the future of the newspaper business, and all the things we need to know about that. Next, remember, we're here every week, 11:30, WNEP TV 16. We're going to be adding features. We're going to be talking to you about all kinds of subjects. If you have any ideas, let us know. And I'll be on the radio all week. The Bob Cordaro Show on the radio on WILK. Looking forward to seeing you next week and every week here on the Bob Cordaro Show on TV.
Thanks for being part of the program. You've got an appointment every Sunday morning at 11:30 right here on WNEP TV, The Bob Cordaro Show on TV.
They fought for us, now he'll fight for you. The pursuit of justice and liberty. It's the Bob Cordaro Show on TV.